You know what's kind of interesting? Nintendo is the reason video gaming in the household is such a huge thing. If it hadn't been for the NES, home consoles would have died off sometime in the 1980s. And they created Sony's PlayStation. That's a funny story. Actually, let me tell you that story super quick. Before we get into today's topic, I'll give you a little history lesson. After Sega developed their add-on to the Genesis called the Sega CD, that lets you play, CDs, Nintendo realized they needed something to compete with that, but they didn't have the engineering to develop a disc drive in the console. So they went to the people that were making, CD players and things like that at the time, Sony, and Philips for a different time, but Sony today. And they were like, hey, can you help us develop a new console that reads discs? And Sony said, sure. So they developed a prototype for the Nintendo PlayStation. That sounds weird, doesn't it? But somewhere along the way, Sony realized that they could back out of this deal, develop their own disc console, and sail way ahead of Nintendo because they had a skill that Nintendo did not, and that was disc drives. So there we got the Sony PlayStation way back in '96, I believe. Now, all that being out of the way, Nintendo used to be the most relevant household name when it came to gaming. The NES, the SNES, the Game Boy, the N64, and the GameCube. Some people's favorite consoles. I mean, the GameCube comes from my entire favorite generation of gaming. The first Xbox, PS2, and the GameCube, best consoles to ever exist. I'm just going to put that out there right now. I'm going to get into that in a different video, but today, I'm going to try real hard to stay on topic. The thing about Nintendo is, at a certain point, they decided to change from making consoles to making controllers that come with consoles, making a gimmick, making something cute to sell it to kids, but not putting a whole lot of effort and decision-making into games, into exclusives, into their library, so that you'd have an actual reason to have this console. Sure, the Nintendo Wii is one of the best-selling consoles ever, but the thing about that is, it's sold because it's a motion-controlled console. And the Wii has a barf dumpster fire of a library, like Barbie's Horse Petting Simulator, Nintendogs, or something like that, Ride Your Horse Through the Equestrian Lounge Simulator. Nintendo just greenlit games for the Wii with no discrimination. Like, they knew... I don't understand the decision-making process that goes into that, honestly. Just do me a favor and look up the Nintendo Wii game library. It's amusing. It's definitely a good laugh. I had a great time doing it. But the thing about that is that they developed the console and the technology hadn't even been perfected yet by the time it came out. Like, I'm gonna show you, what was his name? Shigeru Miyamoto, playing, what was it? I think it was Twilight Princess on the Wii at E3 years ago, and how faulty the controls were. At least I think I am. If not, well, I'm just gonna go right into the next talking.
That tastes good. Okay. Oh.
The technology was not ready. The Wii was not finished when it came out, but they released it because they knew people were going to buy it because it was cute, and it worked. And they did the same thing with the Wii U. The Wii U probably wasn't even tested. It was dumb. The gamepad had no battery. You could only connect one gamepad at a time. Then you had to use a Wii controller or a Pro controller, which I prefer the Pro controller. But then the Wii U came off of third-party games and was just doing exclusives, and then nobody cared anymore. Because Nintendo failed to do something that Sony and Microsoft have learned is imperative to survival, and that's growing up. Nintendo took their titles like Metroid, Legend of Zelda, Mario, and instead of aging them up for the older generations, they just made them pretty. It's the same game, it's still just as cartoony and arcadish, and sure, that works. As a PlayStation owner, I have grown accustomed to more mature games. God of War, The Last of Us, Detroit Become Human, Uncharted. But PlayStation started with Jak and Daxter and Attack of the Power of Juju and Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. They started out cute and arcadey, but as time went forward, they realized gamers are getting older, they're going to want more mature games. So that's what we have. As a PlayStation owner, I have grown accustomed to more mature games. God of War, The Last of Us, Detroit Become Human, Uncharted. But PlayStation started with Jak and Daxter and Attack of the Power of Juju and Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon. They started out cute and arcadey, But as time went forward, they realized gamers are getting older, they're going to want more mature games. So that's what we have. Nintendo never realized that, so when their games became all exclusives, nobody really cared. And then to really make that whole thing worse, Zelda and Metroid lost the Wii U generation. Sure, I think there was a Metroid game, but I can't remember the name of it, so it obviously wasn't too popular. And then with Zelda, there was Hyrule Warriors. That was I think that was developed by the team that made Dynasty Warriors, and that does not work for a Zelda game. So all in all, the Wii U generation just completely died. And they had a resurgence with the announcement of the Nintendo Switch. But I was always skeptical of this thing. Here was my argument way back then. It's just a controller that just so happens to come with a game console. It's not a console, it's a toy, it's a gimmick. And I was right. Everything that they've shown off with the Nintendo Switch is like, look what the Joy-Cons can do. You can feel vibrations and you can hear things through it. And it's like, tell me about your games. We've got, alright, I'll tell you this, alright? We'll give you Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey will come out way later this year, but we'll give them both to you. And we will remake some of the best-selling Wii U games. How's that? And it's like, Nintendo, first of all, why would you release a console in the spring? Release that thing in the winter, dude, in the holiday season when people are going to be wanting to buy it. Also, if you're going to release a Nintendo console, have a Mario and a Zelda game ready. Make them launch titles. Don't make one a launch title and make you wait super long for the other one. And so here we are a year and a half after the Nintendo Switch has come out, and no one cares. Nintendo cannot dominate an E3. They can't do it. They cannot. Oh, here's another Smash Brothers. Cool, the 5th one. Give me something original. Give me something new. Give me something mature, scaled up, and adaptable. Give me something that will stand the test of time. If you can't make a better Smash than Brawl, stop trying. So if I was gonna sum up my main issue with Nintendo in just one sentence, it would be they don't understand that gamers want more mature stories at this point in time and don't care so much about what the console controller can do. They just want to be able to play games. That's it. It reminds me of the Xbox One situation. I'll get into the Xbox One in the future, trust me. But as of right now, that's all I really want to say about Nintendo, and I will see you later.